The rain had stopped only minutes earlier, leaving the city washed and uneasy, as if something unseen had just passed through. The streetlights reflected off the wet pavement, stretching long golden lines across the road. People moved quickly, eager to escape the damp cold, their footsteps hurried, their eyes fixed forward. No one noticed the girl sitting near the iron railing outside the restaurant except those who deliberately chose not to. She was small, wrapped in an oversized shawl that had once been red but now carried the dull color of dust and time. Her hair was tangled, her face thin, yet her eyes were sharp, far too sharp for a child who couldn't have been more than 12. She watched everything: cars, shoes, faces, especially faces. Inside the restaurant, warmth glowed. Laughter spilled through the glass doors along with the smell of expensive food. At a corner table sat a man who owned half the skyline she could see from where she sat. His suit was flawless, his watch worth more than the homes on her entire street. He was used to being obeyed, admired, envied. His name carried weight. His presence silenced rooms. The billionaire lifted his fork, smiling at the man across from him, mid-conversation, mid-laugh, mid-life. The plate in front of him held a dish prepared by one of the finest chefs in the city. It looked perfect. It smelled perfect. It was exactly what he deserved, or so the world had always told him. Outside, the girl stiffened. Her eyes locked onto the plate through the glass, her body tensing as if she had seen a snake coiled in plain sight. She stood up so fast the shawl slipped from her shoulders. Her bare feet splashed in a shallow puddle as she stumbled toward the door. "Don't eat that." Her voice cracked through the air, raw and sharp, cutting through conversation and clinking glasses like shattered glass. The restaurant froze. Heads turned. Forks paused mid-air. The billionaire frowned, irritation flashing across his face as he looked toward the door. A beggar girl stood there, soaked, shaking, eyes wide with something that wasn't fear, but certainty. Security moved instantly. One hand reached for her shoulder. "Stop," the billionaire said without looking away from her. The guard hesitated. The girl swallowed, her chest rising and falling fast. She knew she shouldn't have spoken. She knew people like him didn't listen to people like her. But she also knew what she had seen. "Please," she said, her voice lower now, trembling but urgent. "Don't eat it." A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Someone muttered about street kids and drama. Another rolled their eyes. The billionaire leaned back in his chair, studying her as if she were an odd painting. "And why," he asked calmly, "should I listen to you?" She hesitated. Words felt too small. How could she explain something she herself didn't fully understand? She had lived her whole life surviving instincts, knowing which alleys were safe, which faces lied, which moments meant run. "I saw it," she said finally. "Saw what?" he asked. She pointed at the plate. Her fingers shook. "Death." The laughter stopped. The word hung in the air, heavy and unwelcome. The billionaire smiled thinly. "You expect me to believe that?" "No," she said quietly. "I expect you to live." Something in her tone, flat, honest, unafraid, shifted the room. The billionaire glanced at his guest, then at the plate again. For a moment, nothing happened. Pride urged him forward. Logic told him this was nonsense. Yet something else, something he had ignored his whole life, stirred. He signaled to the waiter. "Take it back." Confusion spread. "Sir, take it back," he repeated. The plate was removed. The girl sagged with relief, her knees nearly giving out. Security escorted her outside, gentle now, unsure. The door closed. Conversation slowly returned, but the mood had changed. Minutes later, the chef burst out of the kitchen, pale and shaking. He whispered urgently to the manager. The manager rushed to the billionaire's table, voice low, face drained of color. "There was a mistake," he said. "One ingredient, it was contaminated. A supplier issue, we're calling authorities." Silence. The billionaire felt the room tilt. Outside, the rain began again. He left the restaurant without finishing his meal, his coat forgotten. He scanned the sidewalk, heart pounding, eyes searching. The girl was gone. For days, he couldn't stop thinking about her eyes. Not her words, her eyes. They hadn't begged. They hadn't hoped. They had known. He used his resources like weapons, cameras, patrols, people who could find anyone. But the city swallowed her whole. She had no records, no name anyone knew. She slipped through the cracks like smoke. Weeks passed. The story faded from the news. Business continued. Deals closed. Life moved on. But the billionaire didn't. He began noticing things he had ignored before. The way people flinched when he raised his voice. The emptiness of rooms filled with luxury. The silence at night when there was no one to warn him of anything at all. One evening, months later, he saw her again. She stood near a construction site, watching workers from behind a fence. The same shawl, the same eyes. This time, he approached slowly. "You saved my life," he said. She didn't look surprised. "I know. Why?" he asked. She shrugged. "Because I could." He offered her food. She refused. Offered money. She stepped back. "I don't want that," she said. "Then what do you want?" She met his gaze. "To not be invisible." The words hit harder than any accusation. He sat down on the curb beside her, ignoring the cold. "What do you see?" he asked. She considered him carefully. "People before they break," she said. "Moments before they end. Not all the time. Just sometimes." "Why me?" "Because you were about to stop breathing," she replied simply. He nodded, absorbing it. "Stay," he said. "Let me help you." She shook her head. "Help isn't cages with gold bars." "Then teach me," he said. She tilted her head. "Teach you what?" "To see," he answered. For the first time, she smiled. Not wide, not trusting, but real. They met often after that. Always outside, always brief. She never told him her name. He never asked. He began funding shelters anonymously. Fixing systems he once exploited. Listening more than speaking. One day, she didn't come. He waited. Hours turned into days. Days into weeks. She never returned. Years later, standing on a stage accepting an award for humanitarian reform, he spoke without notes. "I once believed power meant control," he said. "I was wrong. Power is the courage to listen to voices the world ignores." Somewhere, in a crowded city, a girl watched from afar, unseen, satisfied. Because sometimes, the greatest warnings don't come from loud alarms or flashing lights. Sometimes, they come from a small voice in the rain, saying, "Don't eat that." And everything changes.